Hello and welcome back to my channel. Your Amazon S3 buckets might be exposed right now. Do you really know who's accessing your data? As an administrator or operations engineer, you need to track every single request before it's too late. That's where server access logging comes in. It records every action, whether authorized or suspicious. And in this video, I'll show you exactly how to enable it and take control before someone else does. Let's get started. So when you want to perform server access logging, you need to actually ensure that you store your logs ideally in a separate bucket. In other words, you're going to have a source bucket and a target bucket. The target bucket, or otherwise known as the destination bucket, is going to be hosting all of your log information. And as you interact with your source bucket, you upload and download objects, you delete stuff, or whatever it is you're performing, you need to configure something called the server access logging service, which will enable the S3 log delivery group so that whenever activities takes place within your S3 bucket, it then writes that activity to the destination bucket as a piece of log information. This logging data can actually be stored either in the bucket in its root directory, so right at the root of the bucket, or you can have specified prefixes, also known as folders, but really they are prefixes. For example, you want all of your logs data in a logs/prefix. One of the things that needs to happen, obviously, in order for this to work is to have the appropriate permissions in place. The target bucket is where the S3 log delivery group is going to write information to about the activities that take place in your source bucket. And so the target bucket needs to be assigned with either a bucket policy or specified bucket ACLs that will allow the log delivery group to write to it. In addition to that, you should also be aware about the different log object formats that we have. So you actually have two different log object formats. You've got the non-database partitioning. This is the original log object key format, or you got the database partitioning. Now, if you choose the database partitioning, you can choose the event time or the delivery time for the log file as the date source used in the log format. This format makes it a lot easier for you to query the log information. Some additional points to note about server access logging is that both the source and destination bucket must be in the same AWS region and owned by the same account. Also, you want to be careful of something called an infinity loop. So technically, you can make the source bucket the destination bucket as well. So in other words, what happens is the log delivery group writes to the source bucket. But if the log delivery group is writing to the source bucket, then there is activity taking place when those logs are written, which will cause it to reinitiate another log delivery exercise. And you can understand what I'm getting at. That's just going to turn into an infinite loop, which is going to cause a real issue. And then finally, be aware of the fact that in terms of log delivery, it is based on best effort spaces. Sometimes it can take a few hours for the logs to start showing up in your actual destination bucket. Right, let's jump on into the AWS Management Console and let me show you how to quickly set this up. Okay, so here we are in my AWS Management Console. I logged in as Arthur at the Richard Rose development account. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create a bucket that's going to be used as my destination target bucket. So we're going to call this one Richard Rose Access Logs. Okay, something like that. I'm going to scroll towards the bottom and click Create Bucket. So that's my bucket that's going to be used to store all of my log files. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now for the source of my log files, I'm going to be using this particular bucket, the Richard Rose source code bucket. I got some data in there already. All you need to do is go into properties, scroll a little bit further down until you get to server access logging, click edit, and then you want to enable server access logging. Okay, so it says the bucket policy will be updated so that obviously that log group can write to the bucket, and then it needs you to choose the destination. So I'm going to click Browse S3 and select Richard Rose Access Logs. And obviously, if you want to add any prefixes, if you had prefixes that you wanted to use, then obviously you can do that as well. We'll choose this as destination. And then you've obviously got the log object key format that you can use. So this is your default setting, but you can obviously choose destination prefix, source account, source region, source bucket, and then all of that, where you can decide whether you want it on the S3 event time or the log file delivery time. So we'll leave it at the default values for the second option and click Save Changes. Okay, so that's a successfully edited server access logging. So what that means now is we go back into buckets. If I go into the access logs and if I go into permissions, you will see, in fact, there is now a new bucket policy in my destination bucket that allows the service logging s3 amazon aws.com and allow to put object specifically into this resource, which is going to be the log file information. Okay, so that is fine. That is fantastic. Let's go to our source bucket again. So richer row source code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly upload a file. Okay, just got some objects here. Let's upload this one, for instance, and we'll click upload. Okay, and in fact what we want to do is just close that. Let's upload another file. So maybe one of my other, there you go. How about the logo? Let's put the logo, Richer Roast logo in there. Click upload as well. So we're doing some activities with this source bucket, and therefore what should happen is if I go back to my buckets and go to Richer Roast access logs. Okay, now you don't see anything there immediately. Like I said, it does take a little bit of time, so I'm going to pause the video over here, and once I start getting some log information in, I will resume the video. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and refreshed this page, and as you can see, we've finally got some log data in. It took about an hour, but here we are. So we can just go into this, and this is broken down into basically by date order. So 2025, today is the 5th of March. And let's take a look. There we are. So we've got some log information. So in fact, if we take a look at the log data, let me just open that up. You will see the kind of information that's available in it. Okay, so we've got lots of information here. In fact, let me just quickly search for put operations. There we are. So we've got a put object. And in fact, it refers to SNS access policy example JSON, one of the JSON documents that we were working with a little bit earlier. So that was uploaded, and that clearly shows that that action took place. In fact, it gives you a lot of information. It tells you who did this. So good old Arthur, using our identity center user. So you know Arthur, he's got full administrative privileges. He's logging in with Richer Roast Senior Admin Architect's privileges. He's assuming a role, and as you can see, he uploaded this file. Right, we'll need to have a word with Arthur and see why he did that. But there you go. You can see there's a lot of information there to help you with managing your activities, auditing activities that take place within your S3 platform. Okay, so let's just come out of this and go back to our bucket. So if we scroll a little bit back into the root of the bucket, obviously currently there is just the one folder that's been created in there. But here's the thing. As you use server access logging, this is going to start filling up. Okay, so a lot of data is going to start getting accumulated, and obviously that's going to add to your storage cost. So you need to make a decision from a business perspective, just how much logging information you actually do want to store, whether you need to go back maybe just a month, maybe you need it for auditing purposes to go back 7 years. Whatever the case might be, you need to make that executive decision, financial decision, because there's a cost involved in all of this. And obviously what you can do is obviously go into management and create a lifecycle rule. Okay, so we've spoken about this before. You can create a lifecycle rule so that you can expire all log files so you no longer need any more automatically, maybe after 6 months, after 365 days, whatever your corporate strategy might be. So that's just one to watch out for when it comes to handling server access logging and buckets that store all of your logging information. Right, that brings us to the end of this video. I'll see you folks in the next. Thank you.